What is going on, you guys? It's your boy Rebirth here, and in today's video I am going to be live reading to the Bleach 1000 Year Blood War Cour 3, The Conflict, interview between Kubo, Taguchi, and Murata. There's going to be information here about Cour 3, about Bleach in general, and they should probably have some information on Cour 4 as well. So if you enjoyed this video, please be sure to like, comment, and subscribe. And of course, I give the credit where it's due to Mr. Ichigo Taicho on Twitter. Very good Bleach source of translating things of that nature. Really appreciate it. So without wasting any further time, of course, like, comment, subscribe if you like the video. Let's get into it. Kubo, Taguchi, and Murata round table talk. The subtitle for the third cour is The Conflict. When you heard the word conflict or learned its meaning, what kind of scenes from Bleach came to mind? Kubo says, "When I heard the word the conflict, I thought it must have been chosen with the relationships shown in the third cour in mind, namely Ichigo and Uryu and Hashwald and Bazb. That's what came to mind right away." Murata says, "Same for me. When I first heard the subtitle, like Kubo-sensei mentioned, I immediately thought of the dynamics between Ichigo and Uryu and Hashwald and Bazb. I think everyone who's seen the third cour probably had similar thoughts. Those two relationships are central to the cour's emotional weight, and I felt the word conflict captured that beautifully. It's a term that resonates equally with both the creators and the viewers." Basically, what I'm going to do is I'm going to read whatever the responses are, and then I'll give my thoughts on it as well. And then Taguchi says, "When I first heard the subtitle, it was during a confirmation meeting where someone said, we're thinking of using the conflict for the third cour. How does that sound? It was my first time hearing the word, so I looked up its meaning right away." He laughs. "Once I understood what that meant, I had the same impression as the others. Ah, I see. It felt like a well-chosen word. I thought, who came up with that? Was it your idea, Kubo?" Kubo says, "No, it wasn't me. On the contrary, I assumed that you, Murata, and the editorial and production teams decided on it together. Was I mistaken? You are. So then, who did come up with the conflict?" "There was a meeting where many people involved in the anime's production gathered, and everyone contributed ideas and proposed candidates. Since the second cour was titled The Separation, we wanted a word that could naturally flow the separation and also represent the entire third cour. What came to mind, just as the three of you have already said, were the relationships between Ichigo and Uryu and Hashwald and Bazb. Those dynamics led us to keywords like opposition or facing off. That became the core theme. However, using the word like opposition directly didn't quite feel right, so we tried a more fitting term. In the end, it was the collective wisdom of the team that arrived at this. I can really feel how deeply everyone researched words for this. The passion comes through." Okay, so Bleach 1000 Year Blood War Cour 3 was called The Conflict. I too think it was an apt word to choose. There's a lot of fighting in Bleach 1000 Year Blood War Cour 3 between Ichigo and Uryu, Uryu and Renji, Bazb and Jugurem, Shunsui fights, Mayuri fights, Yoruichi fights. There's just a lot of fights everywhere, so having the word conflict, I think, is apt, and it's pretty badass too. In the key visual for The Conflict, the phrase "gathered fates sharpened the blade" is written. I'm assuming it's probably this here, maybe. I researched, who came up with that wording? Kubo says, "That was me. Since we were using the term the conflict, I thought it would be nice to play off the characters for fate and blade." Classic Kubo. "I researched their meanings carefully, and from there I came up with the phrase to liken it to sharpening one's blade in the midst of clashing destinies." Taguchi reading, and now they're talking about the Japanese language, because Kubo does that a lot. A Sugata form/appearance is pretty cool, isn't it? To craft an entire phrase from just the nuance of the word, the conflict, only Kubo-sensei could pull that off. That is one of the hallmarks of Kubo's writing, taking a word and then playing around with the dual meanings. Ichi means number one, Go means guardian, Ichigo's the number one guardian, but at the same time, Ichigo means strawberry, and so he calls, chapter 1, Death and Strawberry. That's what Kubo does. And so I think it's really cool that he's there and he took the conflict's kanji and then had one for fate and blade, trying to harp on the concept of gathering fates, sharpening blades. Great stuff. There are many impactful anime original scenes, such as those between Ichigo and Uryu and Renji. What was the process behind deciding to depict those scenes? Taguchi says, "At first, from the anime production side, we bring up ideas in scenario meetings and saying things like, we'd like to do a scene like this. At that point, the proposal is still in a flexible state, something that hasn't been finalized and can still be revised. So we present it to Kubo while it's still taking shape. After that, we discuss it with him whether the scene should be included in the anime or not. So I want to stop here. I want to stop here for a second. They go in and they have their meetings. Near the meetings, they have ideas, which that's pretty normal. It's pretty standard. And then if they want to do something, they go to Kubo, and then Kubo ultimately decides whether he thinks it's relevant or not. There's been multiple examples throughout Bleach so far, where I think one of the best examples is Taguchi wanted to depict the conversation between Aizen and Yuha in episode 6, and they wrote an initial draft of that conversation, sent it to Kubo. Kubo read it. He didn't feel that it really captured the essence of that conversation. He scrapped it, rewrote it, sent it back. They used it. That's sort of the relationship that's been established here. And so, and in particular, I find this very endearing and cathartic to me, because it makes it feel like Bleach fans are being represented in the anime staff. Because if you really think about it, it's like Kubo is the author of Bleach, and in most cases, Kubo writes what he wants. There's not really a gateway for fans, in theory, for fans to be able to speak directly to the author to say, hey, can we add this or can we do this? The anime staff, people like Taguchi and the other people who are involved in it, we're living vicariously through them, to where he, hopefully, him being a fan of the story as well, knows what fans of Bleach would like to see. And he has the unique opportunity to actually go to Kubo and say, what if we did this? What if we did that? What if we showed the backstory of the first generation captains? And Kubo says, okay, I'll tell you who they are. I'll tell you what they look like, and I'll give you that information. Hey, what if we saw the initial conversation between Ichibe Hyosube and Yuha Baha during the Lex Empire years ago? Kubo's like, okay, hey, what was it like when Ichigo was training in the royal palace, trying to become stronger? And Kubo says, here's Irazu Sando. Hey, like, you get what I'm talking about over here. It's so good, and it feels so right to have people like this who are essentially fans who can have that direct contact with Kubo himself to say, I want to know about this. Will you tell me? And it's all building up to the ultimate question. If you do all the things you did in the past, all that work completely flops and it completely fails if they don't have the opportunity to ask about Ichigo's Bankai. You can't do all this work about Aizen and Yuha's conversation and the first generation captains and Irazu Sando and Squad Zero Redemption. All that work goes out the window if you miss this big one, okay? I don't think they'll miss it, but that's my perspective on it. All right, sometimes I'm fortunate enough to meet with Kubo at the dubbing sessions, and during those moments I'll consult with him directly about a scene we want to include. For example, during a script meeting for Cour 3, someone said, since Uryu will have a stronger presence as a key character in this Cour, we'd like to increase his role. But if we couldn't make that addition on our own, we brought the proposal to Kubo for consideration. When I'm first approached with something like that, I usually ask, to what extent should I develop this? Then the director replies, let's try putting it into plot form first, and that's where the process begins. After it reaches me, I either add to it, rewrite it, or refine it through back and forth discussions. And when I feel that more precise direction is needed, I'll draw a rough storyboard name and hand it over to the team. Uryu's techniques were clearly conveyed through the visuals, and that really helped a lot. Now this is another very key point about Bleach Thousand Blood War production here, in that Kubo, ultimately as the supervisor for the entire thing, it seems to me that the decisions to do one or two things doesn't originate from him. I think Kubo wrote his manga and he was pretty comfortable with what he wrote in the manga overall, for better or worse. It seems to me that the origin of the desire to be changing things, I think that's coming from the anime staff. I think if we adapted Thousand Year Blood War exactly as Kubo did in the manga, I have a feeling, if I had to put money on it, I think he'd be fine with that. It's the anime staff who are quickening him and who are having that initiative to say, we'd like to do this, or what about this, and what about that? And then Kubo, then from there, will analyze whether he should or he shouldn't, and if it requires him to draw something, he draws it. Kubo has been drawing a lot of stuff. He drew the characters for the first generation Soul Reaper captains, the first generation Gote 13. He drew that. He drew Iryu's Volstandish. He drew Uryu's complete holy form. He drew Ichibei. I think he gave like the outline for Ichibei's Futen Taitsatsuryo, if I'm saying that right. Like Ichibei's Bankai. He drew that. He's drawing a lot. He really is. And so I'm very happy about this. Keep doing more. And if any of you are frustrated about like Bleach Hellock stuff, this is why you're not getting it until Bleach is over. The anime is over. Kubo's doing a lot. He's drawing a lot. And so I don't think he has time to be writing Hellark. I'll be honest with you. Moving on, how much rewriting do you actually do? Kubo says it depends on the case. Sometimes I rewrite the entire thing into something completely different, and other times I feel like this must be a scene that the director really wants to depict. I'll ask about their intentions and leave it mostly untouched. That's why we ask Kubo to review everything down to the finest details. He always gives us more feedback than we expect. On the other hand, when relying on only written text, there are times where the intended nuance might not come through or could be misread. So having him sketch out things like this is the kind of feeling we're going for has been incredibly helpful. There are times when I think I probably don't need to check this far, but deciding where to draw that line, what needs reviewing and what doesn't, is tricky. So now I've decided to just check everything that comes my way. This is, I think this is sort of like the difference between how things were at the beginning. Like in Cour 1, Kubo's involvement in Cour 1 was not as much as Cour 2 and Cour 3. I think initially it was just like, oh hey, but then after that they're like, all right, just send him everything. So I think there was that change from Cour 1, from the beginning stages of Cour 1 to Cour 2 and onward. Does director Murata also take part in that back and forth? He says, not in every case, but I do take part in the exchange from time to time. That makes sense. It's mostly a Taguchi x Kubo thing. That said, since Taguchi handles most of the script work, he's usually the one leading that process. From my impression, Taguchi handles most of the checks related to techniques and visual ideas, while when it comes to story-related matters, both of you bring in suggestions from your respective angles. Yeah, that makes sense. I think, honestly, I think what Taguchi's, and maybe he'll talk about this at some point in this discussion, I think right now, it's the overall visual language of the Bleach 1000 Year Blood franchise is something that he's very focused in doing. Checking script, as in what story are we trying to tell, what changes are we trying to make, where are you putting these changes, what new things are we adding, where are you putting these new things, well, like what plot changes are going to be happening here. These are the things that he seems to be really, really involved in, which makes sense because, you know, in many ways, you could very easily consider Bleach 1000 Year Blood War as though it was like an original anime, where, like, usually when you think of a director who's trying to adapt, I don't know, like Demon Slayer, it's like, okay, you're just adapting what's in the manga, and so we need you to interpret it into a visual medium, sure, but that's it. For Bleach 1000 Year Blood War, there's so much changes involved here with the story, with characters, with the position and the time at which things happening changing. We're supposedly heading to a completely anime original ending for the climax of the, like, there's so much there's so much in regards to Bleach, it almost feels like an original anime. So the director in that case has to be really, really on point with checking script, with checking lines, with checking story, with checking plots, and things of that nature. Moving on. With so many anime original scenes added in Cour 3, was it more difficult compared to Cour 1 or 2? In TV anime production, this is Taguchi talking, a single cour is generally capped at 13 episodes. Both Cour 1 and Cour 2 followed that structure, with each with 13 episodes. But Cour 3 ended up with 14 episodes for some reason. Just that one additional episode brought a significant increase in workload. Normally, production is spread out across the team in a rotating format. It's not like the same people work on every episode in sequence. For example, someone who worked on episode 1 might also be assigned to episode 3 and so on. It's structured so that the production duties are balanced. During Cour 1 and Cour 2, each episode was assigned in turn, and by the time we reached the final episode, episode 13, those who had some availability would pitch in, and we'd all go out for the last one. But because Cour 3 had 14 episodes instead of 13, we suddenly had to figure it out. Who's going to handle episode 14? How do we assign staff for it? This wasn't something we could solve using past experience. We had to rethink the structure entirely, and it was a real challenge. So in the end, people who had free time just stepped in. Exactly. It was kind of like pedaling a bicycle nonstop just to keep going. For the final episode, we all jumped into production together. All the supervising directors joined in as well. It felt like a festival. There was this energy like, hey, something exciting was happening over there. Yeah, even just saying it right now makes it sound like a celebration. Everyone laughs. Okay. Just to give my comments and thoughts on that right there. So, I think this is typical with anime production in general. At least that's the case in Bleach 1000 Blood War, where there are these, I like to think them of like squads of teams. You know, you have like, there's this crew where it's like, oh, one animation director paired with, you know, one director paired. I like to think of it as like squads. So like squad A, squad B, squad C. And squad A will take like episode 1. Squad B takes 2, squad C takes 3. And then by the time squad A finishes with 1, he then jumps to 4. Squad B then goes to 5. Squad C just goes to 6. And you rotate like that. So he's saying that typically, whenever you have a normal standard animation core, it's 13 episodes. And so we're able to divide it equally. And by the time you hit episode 13, everyone who's already finished, depending on, I don't know how many squads we have, whether it's 3 groups or 2 groups, but depending on what the numerical order is, by the time you hit 13, you have people who have time and then they come in and then they help. But in Cour 3, they had 14 episodes. So they needed somebody to do that extra. And so instead, they just had to pull whoever was available, pull them all together, group effort to try to get that done. And that was a challenge. So that's what they're saying there. Fair enough. Were there any scenes in Cour 3 that you were particularly focused on during production? Of course, we poured our intention into every single scene. Yeah. Well, sure, maybe. We'll say, I don't know. That said, episode 38, which features Hashfault and Baz B, one of the core themes of Cour 3, was under especially intense pressure from those around us. Even when I met with Kubo at a dubbing session, he said, episode 38 is the most important one in Cour 3, so I've been feeling the pressure. This makes a lot of sense. And I think that it's so important, just me personally speaking. If I remember correctly, I think Toshiyuki Tsuru was on this episode. Let me check. Episode 38, the storyboarder for 38 was Toshiyuki Tsuru, and the director was Dolly Chen. If you're Dolly Chen, it's really, really good for you that in the most important episode of the Cour, as said by Kubo, they give it to you, Dolly Chen. And it makes a lot of sense that they gave that to Toshiyuki Tsuru, one of the most iconic storyboarders ever, especially in Pierrot. So that makes a lot of sense. And 38 was a masterful episode. I have to agree. It was extremely emotional. I thought it was done extremely well. Since episode 38 leads directly into episodes 39 and 40, that's how that works, the climax of the Cour, there was a sense that everything had to be built around that moment. It ended up being the part with the most weight, and that was the hardest to structure. That makes sense. Right before the end is when you want to put in your strongest effort. Let's hope that tracks in Cour 4 as well. Exactly. But that doesn't mean we were only focused on episode 38. If you think of Cour 3, the conflict as a whole, then what's left is maintaining the quality across the entire run, which becomes the real mission. Even if one episode falls short, it throws off the balance of the entire Cour. Sir, a lot of episodes in Cour 3 fell short. So we have to keep the quality and energy consistent across the board, even beyond episode 38. Did you see episode 40? I mean, it wasn't terrible, but I'm like, it's not like you guys were doing like 9s and 10s all around, you know? It wasn't just about managing the pressure around episode 38. We had to elevate the quality of every episode to that same level. At the advanced screening, directors Taguchi and Murata mentioned that Kubo has been drawing more rough storyboards. Did that start with Cour 3? No, I was already drawing names in Cour 2. The parts I'm involved in flow seamlessly across the series, so there's no clear distinction like this changed starting in Cour 3. One thing that stands out to me was the rough battle layout when the Bambis appeared. Ah, yes, that one. And when it came to the names, I asked Kubo to draw Okitake scenes in depth. All right, the spring inside Ukitaki's dream. Again, this is what I'm talking. It does not seem to me that Kubo is the origin point for the desire to do these things. I genuinely feel like the anime staff, presumably because it doesn't seem like, it doesn't look like anybody can just get in contact with Kubo. I think unless you're, I forgot the name of the scriptwriter, unless you're him, unless you're Taguchi, and even Murata doesn't even have that much access to Kubo. It's really those two, the scriptwriter whose name I've forgotten, and Taguchi. Those are the two people who are the source of the changes that we're getting. Because I don't think Kubo is like, hey, I want to add this. It seems to me that what's most likely happening is the staff, namely Taguchi and Cour, are like, hey, we want this. And then Kubo decides whether he wants it or not. So if whatever it is that you want in Cour 4, whatever it is, your whether or not you get it is basically hinging on Taguchi. It's really weird to put. Whatever it is that you want, if Taguchi does not ask Kubo for it, I don't think we get it. So a lot is riding on his sense of fandom and his finger on the pulse of what Bleach fans around the world want. Because if he doesn't ask, I don't think we get anything, honestly. Because right here, we have sort of confirmation that Taguchi asked Kubo to give him, to draw the scenes for Ukitake's dream. And most likely this spreads across to most likely this spreads across to the stuff that Kubo drew for Ichigo and Yuha in episode, I think it was what, 38? I mean, not 38, 28? Stuff like that. Bro, I need Taguchi to do not fail me when it comes to this final battle, bro. Don't fail us. Do not. Anyway, were there any standout fun plays by the staff during Cour 3's production? As a director, I try to keep an overall view, but it's really on the on-site staff who handle things in the moment, so I can't always catch everything myself. If any fine plays happened, I think they'd be more aware than me. Personally, I think Murata pulled off a fine play in every episode of Cour 3. He helped me out on every single episode, so that's 14 fine plays. Look, all right, look. I want to be honest here. Episode 28 of Bleach TYBW Blood War Cour 3. Episode 28. Which I think that's a Murata directed and storyboarded episode, maybe. I really like episode 28. 27, I'm sorry. 27. I really like episode 27. With Yuha Baha's almighty reveal, the Futen Taisatsuyo, to Yuha ascending the stairway, standing in front of the Soul King. It was a really good episode, and I thought the direction in that episode was really good. The music choices, the shots, it was just genuinely fun. I really enjoyed that episode, and I'm tired of pretending like I didn't. I did. It was fun. Tell me right now that aside from the fact that they had to recap a bunch of from 27, which sucks. I'm getting the numbers wrong. From 26, which sucks. Tell me that episode 28 wasn't fun as hell. It was really, really fun. It's not gonna blow your socks off. It's not the newest, best thing since sliced bread, but it was a really effectively hype-invoking, inducing episode, and I give Murata props for that. It's one of the most iconic moments in Bleach is Yuha walking up those stairs, and he will forever be able to say, I did that. You know, I'm sorry. We gotta give that person props there. Secondly, episode 40, the shot of Yuha Baha in his throne room, with the Bambis falling down, and the camera pans out, goes all the way down the stairs, all the way to the entrance of this entire Varvelt, spins around, and fades directly into the ending. I'm sorry. That's epic, bro. That's epic. Now, look. Just because you did like two cool things, it doesn't mean that all the other stuff that you do is acquitted. I fully understand that. It's just, to me, I'm trying to just be objective. That there are some things that this brother is not good at, but I'm not gonna pretend like he hasn't had some good ideas as well. I think the best opinion I can give is that his ideas are good. Just take the pen away. the ideas are good. Just like, all right, or give me a pencil. Just tell me what you want, and we'll give it to this other person to actually draw it. I think you do that, you'll find a perfect balance, because I do think he has really, really good ideas. So anyway. So Murata says, no, I wouldn't say that. What I do remember is this. During the final editing stage, we call the V-edit, where we make the final tweaks while checking the footage. Someone noticed, wait, isn't this character's color off? Looking closely, the character was supposed to be in the shade, but had been colored like they were in direct sunlight. Even though we noticed it, there wasn't any time to fix it during the final editing stage. We were just about to let it go, but the color operator caught it and adjusted the character's color right on the spot. That was some serious skill, truly a fine play. For the record, stuff like that doesn't happen every episode and everybody laughs. Sorry, Goda probably came in clutch. Every now and then, small things slip by, things nobody notices or overlooks, and that's where those kinds of moments are born. Someone even noticed that the number of Yoruichi's drum beats was off during the night scene. Isn't that a fine play too? Right. In the scene where Yoruichi fights Naklavar and activates Shunko Raijin Senkei, there is a moment where the number of drum beats changes. In one cut, it's 6, and in the next cut, it jumps to 7. We noticed it right before the final delivery. Trying to fix it then might have caused new drawing errors, so we were thinking. We figured we might have to air it as is. So in the end, it aired with 7 drum beats? No, it actually got fixed. I was seriously surprised. We asked the photography director, that's Kazuhiro Yamada, can you fix this? And somehow they managed to pull it off. That's impressive. I honestly thought, this is tied to the animation layout, there's no way this can be fixed cleanly, but they connected the timing beautifully with the effect, and when I saw the corrected cut, it was seamless. No visual breakdown at all. I don't think anyone watching would have even noticed. Would you be able to tell if you paused the footage? Even then I doubt it. You'd have to compare the pre and post fix versions side by side. That's how subtle the difference is. It was a textbook fine play. Okay. Kazuhiro Yamada gas. I'm always here for it. I like, and by the way, I think that's a director of photography from Attack on Titan. If you look at Attack on Titan, which studios? Attack on Titan. That's Kazuhiro Yamada. I think he's great. All right, next. Kubo, from your position overseeing the entire production, you interact with many different creators. Could you share if there was any particular staff members whose work left a strong impression of you? Kubo says, that would be the color designer, Miss Saori Goda. Saori Goda, I love. Like, whatever opinion you have on the Bleach color scripts, if you think it's good, the credit, I don't even give the credit to Taguchi. I give the credit to Saori Goda. Obviously, Saori Goda is doing what, Taguchi says, whatever, but I forgot what video it was. You were able to see their interaction where I think she was saying she wanted to change the color. Taguchi was like, no, it's fine. And she was like, I want to change it. And he was like, okay, go ahead. And then she just changed. So I do think that Saori Goda, because they've been working together for a long time, I do believe they have a very flexible relationship. And so for me personally, I give Goda a lot of credit for the way Bleach looks color-wise, although I know that not everybody likes it. I always look forward to the finished products because I feel she's doing work I personally wouldn't be able to pull off. To me, she's someone who can see colors that other people can't. That's the impression I get, and it's fascinating to watch. This right here is a picture. I believe this is a picture of Taguchi's storyboards colored by Saori Goda. I think that's what this is, so that the people know what color should be what. I think that's what this is. What do you mean by seeing colors other people can't? I haven't actually confirmed this with Saori Goda directly, it's just my impression, but I think she's the kind of artist who draws color from light itself. What? She seems to perceive more subtle shades of light than most people. That's exactly right. She really draws out a wide range of colors. I've known Goda for a long time and we've talked a lot. Kubo's impression is spot on. Here's another, this is from episode 28, storyboarded by Taguchi, and I think again, colored by Goda. Like, that's one of my favorite shots from that episode with the, really, really awesome shot right there. I don't want to get on a tangent. I know some of you will agree with me on this. I insist. I insist. I think that Taguchi's storyboards in, like, whenever it's time for him to storyboard moments, like, hey, there's this thing that's in our minds and we just need to make this moment look good and cool. He's your guy. You know, just craft a moment, storyboard a moment that makes them feel godly, mythical, heavenly, epic, whatever word you want to use. He's your guy. All right. His shots can be really, really expensive and larger than life. When it's time for him to use these storyboards to depict fighting, I think that's where you start to see his limitations, really. And so I want somebody in the staff to recognize that difference, to say, you need to give him an episode where we need like epic shots and not necessarily epic fights, if that makes sense. Episode 6, I think that's an outlier. You know, because you got Yamashita and Masaito on that, that's an outlier. For everything else, you have to recognize his strength. And I think his strengths are, you know, showcasing really cool imagery that aren't necessarily tied to actual battles. Either that, or you need to combine him with a really talented director, an animation director, who can, you know, bridge the gap in between those scenes to get the best of both worlds, like you got in episode 6. I firmly believe that. For example, she'll ask things like, what kind of light feels like winter? White? What kinds of light feels like summer? Yellow? When sunlight filters through the trees, how many colors are hidden in that light? How can I recreate that effect? She's always thinking about lighting those kinds of terms. When you look at her finished work, nothing feels out of place, and yet she always adds a twist that makes her color choices feel a bit different from the norm. I second that. Whatever you think about the Bleach color script, maybe you like it, maybe you don't. I don't believe that there are many other anime in production right now that look like Bleach. I feel like right now, Bleach TYBW Blood War is at a level where if you see it, it's like, that's Bleach, you know? Let's say that other shows don't have similar scripts. I think they've been able to carve out a unique niche that's for them, and it works for them, in my opinion. But I know that some people don't, not everyone believes that, which is fair. Take something like an apple. Most people think red, right? But instead of just coloring it red, she might add a touch of blue to make it appear red. Well, how the hell do you do that? It's hard to put into words. Color on its own doesn't hold meaning. It changes based on how it's placed in relation to others. Even something that's just blue can be made to look red depending on what surrounds it. That's what makes her work so impressive. She understands how to manipulate that effect. This is more storyboards. I don't know who storyboarded episode 30, but this is their storyboards. And, color scripts. Whatever. Even during Bleach's production, her insistence on wanting to create this exact color was very strong. As long as there was time, she'd keep working on it through retakes until she got it right. There's something we call a color script that guides the palette and tone across each episode. Usually there's one per episode, but in Bleach she often makes 5 or 6, sometimes even 10 different versions per episode. I always ask to see the color script before the final episode is delivered. When I see it, I often think, this color approach is perfect. So I hope I'm right about that. I hope I'm right that this is storyboards that are then colored by Sarigoda. I think that's what this is. Because Taguchi storyboarded this. Well, somebody correct me if I'm wrong. Maybe it is drawn by her fully, but I think she's just drawing the storyboards. Was there a scene in Cour 3 where Goda's color work particularly stood out to you? There were many amazing ones, but the scene in the Soul King's palace, where Orihime, Chad, and the Royal Guard are fighting, the way she used colors that felt like fresh morning light really surprised me. I remember thinking, I didn't know how something could be expressed with such clarity and freshness. I see it. I'll be real with you. I think I see what they're talking about. It feels like morning sunshine. It genuinely feels like, it doesn't feel like afternoon sunshine. It feels like really pure morning sunshine. That's really cool. I think that's genuinely really cool. Kubo. God damn, this is a long interview. You've attended nearly every recording session. What kind of impression have you had from participating in the demoing process? It's always easy to attend, and I felt like I was really welcomed. That made me happy. Really glad to hear that. Honestly, the fact that Kubo comes to the studio for every episode is something we deeply appreciate. Having him there to watch the performances directly allows us to consistently deliver high-level acting. In anime production, character acting is a hugely important element, and I think having him involved helped us keep Bleach's emotional core intact. From a director's standpoint, I do think relying too much on the original creator can be risky, but in this case, his presence is invaluable. And there's a picture of them seated. How nice. That's Ichigo, that's Uryu, is that Byakuya, and then Rukia? I don't know who this is. Maybe it's Byakuya. No, it's not Byakuya. Never mind. That said, I rarely ever give direct direction myself. I usually just handle the final checks. Is there anything that feels off here? But by that point, directors like Taguchi and many of the other staff have already covered most of the direction. So when it gets to me, even if there's something I don't fully grasp, I still end up understanding the intent clearly just by looking at what's been done. Taguchi and Murata, after working as general director and director respectively across Cour 1, 2, and now 3, could you share how your perspective on Bleach has evolved? Taguchi says, I've always felt that Kubo's work is created with a level of visual imagination that goes beyond what's typically just for manga. When we began animating the Thousand Blood War arc, I kept thinking, how do we make sure that this scene hits the viewer with the same impact it had when they read it for the first time in the manga? Even when it's just a single line, I keep wondering whether the shot we chose really delivers the same emotional weight. Murata says, I feel the same way Taguchi does. As we work through production, we constantly consider how much impact each moment or cut can deliver to the audience. Even though we work with great animation directors and highly skilled animators, and they deliver excellent work, sometimes even a beautiful cut doesn't fully land if compared to the manga. Now that I've been overseeing everything as director in Cour 3, I've realized how incredibly difficult it is to faithfully capture the unique feel of Bleach's artwork. Well, I would have used the black and white, not the colored, but whatever. In the past, Kubo told me, when I draw manga, I already have the camera angles in my head. I mentally cut the scene and lay it into the panels as I draw. So I thought, if that image is already in place, we should be able to recreate something with the same impact. But the truth is, it's really hard. Matching the emotional weight of a manga panel with animation is something I've always struggled with. So here, I guess, if you're somebody who feels that the Bleach anime isn't doing enough hitting the emotional beats, Taguchi himself is saying that sometimes it's difficult for him. I commend being honest with your limitations. Starting from Cour 3, Taguchi became a general director and Murata took the role of director. Did those changes affect how you worked? Murata said they definitely did. Up through Cour 2, I was just handling the specific episodes assigned to me, but starting in Cour 3, I was responsible for the entire Cour, so naturally, the amount of work went up, especially the amount of people I need. I think Yoruichi just hit a Shunko outside my house. As a director, I had to be out on location more often and coordinate with a much wider range of staff. For example, the first time I went to a recording session, I felt so out of place, it was rough. What's this? I don't remember what this is. I've gotten more used to it now, but there are still parts of the job that are difficult. I think there'll be ongoing challenges in Cour 4 too. Also, since I was now responsible for overseeing the whole picture, I also had to make sure the overall quality held up. Before, if I didn't catch something, someone else might catch it for me. The pressure of being the final checkpoint, of not letting anything slip, was huge. There were times I felt crushed by the responsibility of not letting Bleach and Kubo's work be compromised by any of my oversights. With Cour 3, I also started to feel that the on-site staff had really settled into their rhythm by the third round of production. Everyone on the team had become more familiar with the specific demands of Bleach and started independently thinking things like, how do we keep the quality high? What's the best way to preserve the series' tone? Especially in the action scenes, I think the quality control in Cour 3 was handled at a much higher level than in Cours 1 or 2. One unexpected benefit of becoming a director was that I started finding joy in areas beyond the usual animation duties. You mean like in your personal life? Yeah, for example, last year I saw news online like, Otani just hit a home run, yes, even though I'm not in the... What the hell? So you're the type who relieves stress through little things happening around you? Exactly, or I'll watch cat videos. What the heck? What is bro talking about? So he's saying he's saying he has more time on his hands to just see stuff online that's not related to animation. So sir, we need you to focus, all right? I don't think you're good enough to be watching baseball instead of working on Bleach, okay? I'm sorry. We need you to focus. And he's watching cat videos. Bruh, if you don't get your butt over watching cat videos on our Bleach time, that's hilarious. Just like you both said, when you move up in position, you end up delegating more and more. And even if that takes away some of the physical burden, I think it tightens the screws mentally. That's probably why you end up carrying more stress. Kubo's watching out for us. Well, I personally think manga artists are the kind of people who can't really trust others to do the job. So I completely understand the urge to do everything yourself. Kubo in particular likes to do things himself. As the original author and general supervisor, you've been directly involved in the anime's production. What's been the most fun part for you? Honestly, I've enjoyed all of it, especially the dubbing sessions. Since I normally work alone and don't interact with people often, being in a place full of people has actually been a lot of fun for me. Maybe the anime staff thought I was just hanging out idly, but for me, that atmosphere was refreshing. I went to each dubbing session genuinely looking forward to being there. What's this? Director Taguchi, you were having so much fun. Didn't Kubo catch you mid-bite while you were eating? No, that's not how it was. What happened was, I had my mouth full because of a scheduling crunch, and Kubo walked up to me while I was eating, so I sort of nodded as a greeting. It wasn't intentional. That just shows what a warm family-like atmosphere the dubbing site has. I think that's thanks in part to the cast members, like Morita and the others, who created such a positive vibe. That's definitely a huge part of it. Lastly, thank you. My voice. Could each of you share a message for the fans looking forward to Cour 4? In Cour 4, we wanted to create something that delivers the same sense of emotional payoff as finishing the original manga. Something that makes you go, yeah, this is Bleach. Starting from Cour 2 and Cour 3, we've been gradually adding more anime original elements. We hope you look forward to how those continue to evolve in Cour 4. Murata, if you've been watching from Cour 1 to Cour 3, I think you've probably noticed how the overall visual quality has steadily improved. That's true. Animation in Cour 2 is debatable, but the visual quality, I think, has been going up each cour. We hope you will continue to enjoy seeing that. In Cour 3, for example, we added scenes where the backgrounds were made entirely using CG. That is true, and it was good. I know people hear CG, it's like, oh, no. Think about it. Cour 3, that's exactly what they did, and it looked good. It looked good. I'm sorry, it did. In Cour 4, we're planning to take on even more of those kinds of creative challenges. It's not just me. Many different creators are testing new approaches behind the scenes, all in service of delivering the best possible quality. We're working at the very peak of what we can do, so I hope you'll be excited to see what comes next. Kubo, in Cour 4, that character will finally appear. I believe their arrival will be the biggest surprise. What the heck? What? That character will finally appear. Who's he talking about? That character will finally appear. Am I missing something? Who is he talking about? Do you mean like Aizen's return? I mean, but Aizen's already returned. Okay, hold on. In Cour 4, what we have is we've got Askin versus Akisuke, Grimmjow, Nail, and Yoruichi. We've got Kenpachi versus Gerard Valkyrie. And then we've got Toshiro and Ko against Gerard Valkyrie as well. And we have Ichigo versus Yuha. And then Aizen versus Yuha. And then Ichigo and Aizen versus Yuha. Who? I don't know who they're talking about. If you know who he's talking about, let me know down below. The closest it might be will be Aizen? Or do they mean like Ryukin and Ishin coming to join the battle? I have no idea. That character will finally appear. I don't know. Anyway, so that right there is all the information from the Cour 3 interview from Kubo, Taguchi, and Murata. If you enjoyed this video, be sure to like, comment, and subscribe, and I will see you in the next Rebirth video. This is your boy, signing out. Peace.